Greetings, welcome to and/or welcome back to my YouTube page. I'm Fire Lotus the Witch, and today I'm going to do my best to describe how to work with energy. I'm saying doing my best because it's one thing that I've always struggled with. I've got the knowledge, but articulating it to where other people would understand it, it's difficult. But if you did not know, when it comes to witchcraft, for one, setting your intention is not always, that's half the job, okay? There are certain times in place where setting your intention and walking away is perfect. But the majority of it, when it comes to spell work, you have to connect with the energy, right? So I've talked about this before. Let me grab a candle because I'm a virtual learner as well, a visual learner. So when we go to enchant a candle, right? For one, you're going to carve your intentions. You're going to carve what the candle's for. Protection, love, prosperity, whatever, right? Then you're going to add oils or herbs, depending on how you do your practice. I like to use a lot of oils, and I'm just now getting back into using herbs. You're going to connect with those oils and herbs and say, hey, this is your job, right? So we've worked this, right? Whether it's just carving, herbs will sprinkled around, sprinkled on it, and a dab of oil, right? Now it's set up, right? So the point of the candle magic, right, is to light it and then you are empowering it, right? So imagine, I don't know why I keep saying right. Imagine you are kind of creating an entity in and itself, right? You're creating this small little spark of life. Burning it is releasing that into the universe. But there are some times where energy wants to be a little stubborn. And that is when, because witchcraft to some degrees is like alchemy. And what I mean by that is you have the candle, you have the herbs, you have the oils. By the way, if you hear any noise behind me, it is my cats. They're having a heyday. But you were mixing those, right? You're conjoining the herbs, the oils, your intentions, and the candle, right? So when you combine those, and when you light it, you are basically converging those different things together to create an entirely new thing, which is the heart of your spell work. Now, energy manipulation comes into this because sometimes, now what I mean by energy manipulation, this is using your energy and exerting it, right? Or recharging yourself. If you're a channeling medium and or a channeler, you're going to want to learn that too, because sometimes you don't need to ground yourself. You need to pull excess energy into you, which we'll eventually get into that too. So when it comes to spell work, there's a lot of the times that some people just think, oh, well, I've added the oils, I've added everything, the work is done. Yes, but no, actually. If you learn to push your energy out, to entwine with that and to push it out into the universe, it adds so much more to your magic itself. Now, the thing that I've struggled with the most is actually trying to explain to somebody what energy manipulation feels like and how to exert that, how to tap into that, how to recharge that, and how to connect to the energies around us. It's all, a lot of people try to go into it with visualization. We all know that not everybody visualizes. So I'm going to try to hone in more on the physical feelings and sensations that come along with it. So we've all had those moments where you've walked by a location or walked into a location and you got a little chill, right? We've had those moments. Some of you have had those moments where you're listening to that perfect song and all of a sudden you get goosebumps all around you, right? All of those are basically how energetic energies can feel. It can feel a tingling sensation in your hands. I typically get it, which is what I call magic mode. It's a weird name, but it works for me. Basically, I'll be going about my day and then all of a sudden the tips of my fingers start to tingle, right? You know that moment where your hand's falling asleep and you're trying to wake it up? Slightly like that, but less intense. And it starts to tingle, and then I will get up, go to where my magical tools are at, and then I kind of go into this somewhat trance. And there are some times where I have no idea what I'm about to be doing, magically speaking, except for my soul, my body, my spirit is calling for it. So I will get everything, go in that trance. I also love it because it's moments and times where I don't second guess every single thing that I'm doing or overthink things. And by the time that I'm through with it, I have a working. There are some times where I've done this where I had no idea what the working was until right as I lit the candle. And if you have not realized, I'm an Aries, so I use candle magic a lot. So I call that magic mode. You may get into that. If not, that's perfectly okay too. But the tingling sensation, right? So a lot of the times visualization can be a good thing, but you can also use your physical hand, right? That you're going to you're going to feel weird doing this for the very first time because you're going to feel like you're not doing it. And then it's like, well, how do you know you are doing it? You'll just know. And I know that sounds like a cop out. It's tricky, right? So what I normally do is I always use my hands. Now there are some magical people that believe your left hand does one thing and your right hand does the other. Basically, let's say your right hand receives, your left hand sends out, or vice versa, because I am dyslexic. You can follow that. You may not have to. It's up to you. Again, this is your practice, right? So say this candle is lit, and I feel like just a natural sense, your intuition, it needs a bit of a push to really get that energy out there. I will stretch my hand out and I'll look at this. Now I do slightly visualize because I visualize this electric like mist around it that creates this little bubble around the candle. And then using my energy, I will exert that and push that out. And the best way that I can describe how I do it, it's almost I tense my hands up to where they start shaking, and then I just slightly tap into it. Now, I've made a video on TikTok that has better visuals, which is if you have ever watched A Discovery of Witches, in that book series and in the show, they see everything as these little streams, like little spider webs, right? I use that visualization and I will tap into it and either pull it away or I will push into it, thus pushing that energy out. Other sensations that you may feel with this is tingledness, senses like a cold, imagine cold, just a small area of coldness all on your hand. It could be warmth. And depending on the energies you're tapping into, whether that's a candle, if you tap into, or if you go up to some of the crystals you have, and without overthinking it, try to just randomly connect to that crystal. Each crystal has its own vibration. It could be a vibration. It could be almost a zap of electricity. It could be extremely warm, like let's say the sun just came out on a slight cold day and it warms your face. All of these sensations are indication that you are connecting with energy. Depending on the energy is depending on what you're connecting with, if that made sense. So let's say with trees, if it's an older tree, you're going to feel it. When I connect with trees, because sometimes I do need that extra ground, it almost feels like this jolt of electricity comes through me and then down to my feet, and then it's almost like I'm pulled with an anchor. So if you've ever been on like an amusement ride, whether that's at like Disney World or like your local state fairs, those feelings, or when you were younger, because it doesn't really happen with adults now, but when you were younger and you were in the back seat and you went up that hill and you started to go and your stomach fell, these are sensations that you can feel with tapping into that energy. I have another trick that I can do. It's not a trick, but I have another thing that I can do. It's a slight different style of magic mode. And at one point in time in my research, I actually found the actual name for it. But I can sense the vibrations and almost see the vibrations of the plants around me. So if I'm outside doing my magic thing, depending on what I'm doing, I will go to the plant that vibrates the most or vibrates the less. It just depends on what I'm doing. And it is almost like I can see them actually vibrate. And that is where the energy manipulation comes from. Because when I say energy, I can break that down more where I'm personally, and this is going to sound weird, but hey, hello, I'm a witch. Have you met me yet? But there's these moments where it's basically you are manipulating the atoms and ions around you. Basically, the building block to the fabric of life that we are in. That is what witchcraft is. Now, energy manipulation does take time, and you definitely have to listen to your body because you can overexert yourself. And I've done it way too many times, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I've already got a story time of the time that I did a meditation, or not a meditation, spell work, and I was doing my own thing, but inevitably I wound up taking in the goddess or drawing down the moon without realizing it. That is also when you see, whether in clips, in real life or on social media, when you see people in a circle and they're dancing around a fire or they're moving, there's a reason you're doing that. So it goes into the Eightfold Path. It could be called multiple other things. That's what I know it by. And it's basically 8 different ways to change your perception, basically. Breathing, dancing, drumming, all of these things. For one, the breathing, it literally changes the oxygen that's going to your brain. So it literally changes the way that you see the world around you. Dancing and drumming, the reason you're dancing and you're drumming or you're using drums or dancing in general is you're building up that energy. So when you cast a circle, a triangle, whatever shape you would like to cast, when you cast that, as above so below, it creates this like little pocket outside of everything else around you, right? So it's like your own little pocket in that dimension. Dancing or exerting that energy, because again, when we move our hands, we exert psychokinetic energy, or we exert energy, right? You can tap into that energy and build it up and build it up and build it up. So when you release the shape that you've casted, because not all witches use circles, when you release it, it is an explosion that has been under pressure because you're building that up. Another thing that social media has kind of mixed up a little bit is when you see a circle of salt when it comes to spell work, it does not always for protection. I use salt, or specifically circles in my salt, like my spicier workings. I will put a circle of salt around it, not to protect that working, but to create a bubble so all of that energy stays there in that circle while that working is being done. Again, you may not do this. That is perfectly okay. The main thing that people forget nowadays, they hyperfixate on witch and not enough on the craft, okay? Witchcraft, which means your craft and my craft are going to be different. I know witches that have been doing it for 50 years and they don't use energy manipulation. They don't see it as that, and that is perfectly okay. What I can say is if you felt the call to it and or you feel like you've already done it, 9 times out of 10, you have. But yeah, that's a short tidbit. Again, I've always had a hard time kind of articulating how I do it because everybody is going to be different. It is almost like mediumship. Everybody is going to perceive spirit differently. So you have to figure out what naturally works with your body. Now, if you want to use a bunch of necklaces, there's this other trend with Reiki practitioners, and I'm personally trying to get my hands on them. It's where you get copper and you put it into a little spiral and you wear it on your palm. That is a great thing to do because I do believe that energy can come out of the palms or specifically the fingers. That is also why you will hear witches say you don't need all these tools. The most magical wand or tool you have are your own fingers because you can direct that energy. Now, I do have specific hand motions, and in other spiritual practices and even religions, there are specific hand movements that you can do to either control energy or summon energy. I also stim a lot when I listen to music where I'm doing my hands like this, matching with the beat. All of that to me plays into the energetic aspect of manipulating the energy around you. But yeah, there are some processes, and I hope I described that right. I've recently did a video, it's part 2 of The Signs Were Always There, my journey into mediumship. Part 2 of that, I do energy exercises or explain some energy exercises, how to see your aura, how to connect to other things around you, energetically speaking. But yeah, but when it comes to the channeling and or exerting energy, you will see me have Cheez-Its or other small little snacks because while I'm doing readings or if I'm doing major spell work, I will eat in between that. And you're like, Lotus, why? Because how does our body produce energy? The food that we eat, it takes it, converts that over to energy. When you are doing energetic practices like this, you are exerting a lot of energy. There are times in rituals and spell work that I've done where it has completely energetically wiped me out for like an entire week. So you have to be in tune with your body and listen to your body. If your body is saying stop, stop, that does not mean summon more energy and do it out. Depending on what you're doing, it may mean that, but what I mean by this is exerting energy and manipulating energy. It can have physical consequences, okay? I know 2 people that have ended up in the hospital because basically they exerted too much energy and it got them sick because, again, it weakened the body and they had like 2 days stay in the hospital. So please be careful out there. And a lot of the time I've realized that there are some people that when they start to do this, I have the same problem where sometimes I don't understand or fully comprehend the amount of energy that I'm pushing into it. So there's a lot of the times where I have to check in with myself. All right. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. What is the most recent movie or TV show that you have just binge watched that you are just, And for the people that don't watch TV, What's the last audiobook you listened to or podcast episode? Let me know in the comments. And again, if you ever have any questions, drop it in the comments or send to me an email, firelotuswitch@gmail.com. I'm happy to help if I can. But yeah. What are some tips that you use in your practice when it comes to exerting energy or manipulating energy? But as always, I hope you're having a great day.